Hello and welcome to another alternate media special. Was that delayed? That was probably a little delayed. It's probably a little late on the pickup there.
It was like newscaster delayed though, where it's like, all right, and now to you, Jim. And then it's like, thank you, Tom. It's like that awkward.
Well, as you can see with me tonight is my beloved Miss Alternate Media. Tonight's subject is going to be, I think, a really good one and a very needed one, which you guys know what we do here. We talk about controversial topics, things that are killing the church or things that are in the church and need to be killed. And this, as it turns out, is both. Oftentimes it's both.
Well, I think you said the same thing twice. You said things that need to be killed in the church and things that are in the church that need to be. So it's things that are killing the church. And oh yeah, no, you said it right. Never mind. I'm dumb. Excuse me.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing. I can words.
I can't words.
No, if I had said it, I would have.
So tonight we're talking about Lashon haRa, the evil tongue. That is, man. That's a subject that I feel like just based on the title alone, right? The evil tongue, a lot of people are already going to have an idea of what it might be in their minds, and I think a lot of people are probably going to be wrong.
Most of you are wrong. No, that's there. There's the simple answer is more than it seems, and there's a lot more to it than just bad speech, right? We're gonna get into it. There's an entire concept about it. In fact, you guys can kind of see on the screen, I've pulled up the Shulchan Aruch because there is an entire section of this book dedicated to this particular topic. So we're gonna get into some really good Jewish traditional understandings of what this is. We're gonna talk about how it translates in the New Testament. And what this looks like in the real world, how do we implement this, and how we don't implement it, I guess actually would be a better way to how to avoid it. So anyway, as we're jumping in, so Shalomi, my homies, I actually have not yet said that, so I need to make sure I said that. And thank you again to our top tier patrons. We appreciate all your guys' support and making this happen. Big things are coming, and it's all thanks to you guys. So stand by and let's get the music going. Boom. There's the old school logo. And what do we got? There it is.
Boom.
Oh, we need to add a name to the bottom here. We need to add Miss Alternate Media at the bottom under your left side of the screen. Whatever.
Right.
your right, my left, whatever. I not only can I not words today,
but direction is hard.
Yeah, it's all difficult for me.
That's all right. We forgive you.
Yeah, you better. You have to. You have to.
So, let's jump right in. Lashon haRa,
so,
the evil tongue. What do you think that most people's idea of the evil tongue would be coming out of Christianity or like within the Christian church? What does the evil tongue sound like?
It sounds like this. Listen here, idiot. We forgot our tradition.
Bro. I'm so ashamed.
Yeah, feel shamed. Feel embarrassed. Because that's what this topic is about.
That is not the way.
So, I am actually still doing the Angel's Envy because, like I said, this is the bottle that I keep upstairs.
I finally had some Angel's Envy.
It's very good, isn't it?
I was talking about it at the Shabbos table a couple of weeks ago with somebody, and I went to their house last week again, and they picked it up. They were like, "Oh yeah, I wanted to try it too." So I actually got a chance to try the Angel's Envy last Shabbos, which was awesome. Yeah, I actually really enjoy. I hate bourbon. You know me. I'm not a bourbon guy. But it's kind of sweet. It was nice, and it didn't. It also didn't give me the weird aftertaste that I normally have the next day from a bourbon. That's the one thing I hate the most about bourbon.
I think you would also like the Four Roses then if you liked Angel's Envy.
Yeah, I still haven't tried that one yet. Yeah, and the reason I'm just still doing beer, I'm Sam Adams Summer Ales right now. I'm still in the middle of moving. As you guys can see, my bookshelves are built but not full.
Barren.
Yeah, barren. All of my books are actually there's nine and a half boxes. I actually had to rip open a box to find this for tonight. 9.5 boxes of books here and one unbuilt bookshelf. So there's actually 3 up here now. And there's going to be 4 total. There's going to be 1 right here. So it'll fill the space quite nicely. And so I've just been
sparkling water, lime, and coffee.
Sparkling water. Still can. Okay, yeah. So now I want to answer your question. What is evil speech in the typical Christian mindset? The evil speech, like from your, like if you go to church and you say that, what you're gonna get, maybe 8 times out of 10, I'm actually starting to see people back away from this typical rendition more and more in larger Christendom. But usually it's like, cussing, cuss words, Lord's name in vain, saying GD.
Right.
And
the profanities, the wordy
things like that. Yeah, more or less things like that.
Insults, curses, cussing, not curses.
No words.
Yeah. Spicy language.
And no jokes. No jokes.
The
right.
S word, stupid. That
definitely. Yeah. And then
that's not the S word.
any all innuendos are like not okay. That's considered like evil speak.
Yeah. Inappropriate jokes.
Vulgar, crude.
Negative humor too. Like you and I know, we've both worked trade jobs and being in the military. Negative humor is like a staple of a coping mechanism for a lot of trade jobs. And there's like that kind of weird disconnect in some Christian circles, not all. We're not cracking all the way hard down, but this idea that, you know, joking in an insulting way in jest is like not okay in some Christian circles. We're like, you know, me jokingly calling you an idiot when I said that we forgot our, like, that's a no-no kind of thing in some circles. Whereas,
right.
you and I have a different, you know, it's a completely different thing. But
dark humor, there's one.
Even if it's about yourself, even if it's irony about your current situation, they're like, what?
Yeah. And someone's got a Hebrew keyboard available to them, one of our viewers. That's awesome. I have a Mac, so mine can do that. I don't know if this person has a Mac too. I have a Kitzer Shulchan Aruch up here because we're actually going to be reading from it for the Lashon haRa portions. Just to answer that question real quick. I was just impressed to see the Hebrew come up in the chat. Very cool.
Yep.
So what is it actually? Why don't you kick this off since I answered your question?
Yeah, what it actually is, in one word, one simple word, that's not quite so simple when you break it down, but slander. Slander, I would say one of the more particular versions of this that is especially applicable in Christian circles would be gossip. I think that's a hard one because it hits home and because it's hard to determine what is gossip, what isn't gossip, because a lot of times in Christian circles, gossip shows up in the form of a prayer request or you know, a concern for somebody else.
There's definitely some dust of Lashon haRa. We'll get to that too in a little bit and stuff like that. Yeah, it's one of those things where you know, this is something that we've talked about in the past a little bit. We can actually touch on it more specifically here. Is that something that Christianity sort of lacks is specific definitions of terms and words. And so we say things like gossip is sin, and then things that would not constitute as gossip get roped in with it, and then, you know, happens in a bunch of other stuff. And, you know, one thing we admire, you and I particularly, about Orthodox Judaism in particular is actually they have very specific definitions for all of these things so that you know exactly what is and what is not. And they're very careful, very thorough. And so, yeah, so I have a banner. Let's go. So what is Lashon haRa? I did put gossip because that's basically a portion of it, but it's more than just gossip. There's actually like levels to this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like remind me. So like explain, if you will, for me, the difference between slander and gossip.
So gossip is more or less fruitless I would say in most cases, whereas slander can actually be out of a legitimate concern, but it's still unnecessary, right? Slander, especially as defined, right? Even if it's true, even if it's something that actually is true, if it causes public shame and financial hardship, I think are the particulars regarding slander. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right about on there. In fact, so there's a couple of things. So you have, and I'm just going to take this time to read directly out of the Shulchan for some. For those wondering, and you know what, I'm going to turn this into a banner real quick. The chapter in the Shulchan, and we're coming from the Kitzer Shulchan Aruch. This is Siman 30 is the chapter. So I got it right here. Hold up. There's your banner. I'm just going to read the very first paragraph. It's set up in these seifim It's kind of like a paragraph. It's more than a sentence, but less than a full paragraph. So I stanza? I don't know. But I'm just going to read it's not a verse. So, but anyway, I'm just going to read the first one. This is actually about Rehilus, which is like a busybody, like a
do-gooder.
A busybody is like a gossiper. Goes around this translates it as talebearer. Going around talking about other people. The literal translation is peddler. And so, kind of with that in mind, this is what the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, Siman 31 says, "You shall not be a talebearer among your people. Who is the talebearer of whom the Torah speaks? This is one who carries words around as a peddler carries merchandise, and goes from one to another and says, so and so said this about you, or I have heard such and such about so and so." It's like a gossiper, a busybody, going around and collecting information and spreading, information. Even though that which the speaker reports is true and is also not derogatory, this person has violated the negative commandment that prohibits rechilus. So that's actually the first half of this. Furthermore, is a great sin and one that can cause the death of Jewish people. And it's going to go into a little bit about like reasons why the Jewish people had to die and do things like in the desert. One of these, and I think this is something you wanted to bring up, is the false report or the bad report, which results in the 40 years wandering in the desert. There's actually a connection to Lashon haRa about that. So I'm going to skip that one bit real quick. Okay, so you shall not stand idly by while your fellow's blood is shed. Consider and learn that from which is resulted from the tale-bearing of Doeg the Edomite, who told Shaul that Ahimelech had given David, soon to be King David, provisions and a sword. Even though in that case the matter that was reported was true, and also did not constitute derogatory information about Ahimelech, as Ahimelech had not committed any crime with his action. For even if Shaul himself would have asked Ahimelech about his actions, he would have openly told him what he did, because he did not intend to commit a crime against Shaul. Despite all of this, the Rechilus of Doeg caused many Kohanim to be killed. 1 Samuel chapters 21 and 22. So there's this, and this is actually like a 14th century document, but your words in ancient Israeli mind have substance. They're tangible. They have power. They have consequence. They think of words as something that can yield, rather than something like we think of words as a way of communicating one idea from one person to another. That's not how the ancient Israelites viewed words. Words were much more powerful than that.
Right. And there's an impetus there you can see to really step back and consider, almost in a chess player kind of way, the effect that your report will have on not just you and who you're saying it to and who you're saying it about, but the broader scope of everybody who could possibly be affected by it.
Yeah. And so oh man, I wish I wrote down notes earlier and I forgot them actually at work. But actually, Paul talks about not being a busybody, not being a talebearer. And of course, he didn't come up with anything new. He's just teaching Jewish teachings, being a rabbi. So naturally, but the
reason I say do-gooder is because it typically is a person who they think they're doing a positive thing, right? They think they're helping, and maybe there's something to be said for that, or maybe it's just evidence of internalized narcissism, because usually people who do harm while trying to do good by involving themselves in other people's business, like forcefully this way, that kind of is a sign of textbook narcissism.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a level of self-importance, like it's presuming a position of importance in somebody else's life and business, which is why they inject themselves into other people's business.
Yeah, typically like a busybody. I keep using that word, but I can't think of anything else. It's very much a cultural word, but like it's usually something where they go around and they're like a journalist. That's how I describe them. They go around needlessly trying to collect information, dirt, whatever, on people for no other reason than to spread that information and collect more dirt on other people as a result. Like they'll usually they're trying to pry information out of you by giving you a little bit of what they know already to see if you're willing to divulge any new information to them. And then they're going to take that and they're going to keep going. And they're going to keep spreading it around until the whole, village basically knows what's going on.
Again,
private life.
Because it's anybody who knows anybody who's like this. Also, you can almost predict the exact order in which who they will speak to, right? You can tell after they've spoken to you, you know exactly who they're going to go to next and who they're going to go to after that. Like there's usually a habitual cycle of people that they go to.
It kind of depends. And what's weird too, and this is actually something I read in Taming the Tongue by Mark, I think it's Kaiser. But usually a busybody or a gossiper really likes to inject themselves into people's lives, offering like these, I know it all, I have all the answer solutions to your problems, like always trying to insert themselves into everybody's situation at some level.
Yes.
It's very narcissistic behavior, more or less, is what it is. And this is forbidden. This is not okay. This is bad for a community, by and large.
And it's interesting because the command is more or less not to carry, right? That's the let's see. Because the verse that stuck out in my mind when we discussed talking about this subject is Exodus 23:1, right? So the beginning here, lo tisa, that is to carry, right? It's the same word that's used when it says not to take the name of the Lord in vain, right? It's tisa, it's to carry, it's to bear. And so this is something that can be done. You can carry bad news to other people, right? You can carry this report to other people. And that's one aspect of it, right? This is in which you would be speaking it. But it's not limited to that, because when you read through, especially on Safaria, there's the lovely little tab halacha, right? Where you can read different bits of like the Shulchan Aruch and other writings of the established how to walk this out. And so many of them actually put an emphasis on receiving Lashon haRa, right? Because if somebody carries this bad report to you, but then you believe it, you take it to heart, you really think about it and you accept it, you are now carrying that as much as the person who brought it to you, right? And so there's almost an emphasis put on disregarding Lashon haRa. Like you're supposed to actively push that away and not believe it, whether or not it's true. It's not something you're supposed to consider.
Okay, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so is Lashon haRa, does it only apply to third-party speech, or can it apply to like someone that you're talking directly to, but maybe they don't know how to take a joke, or they take what you're saying to them as like legitimate. Like, you know how some people joke around, but they actually mean it.
Thinly veiled.
The passive
But
aggressiveness.
harms you
Yeah.
emotionally.
Passive aggressive Lashon haRa. And that very much is a real thing. That is actually, so I think that's give it here 1 second.
Because you do tend to dwell on things that may have just been a joke. And if you don't let it roll off, then later on it kind of becomes a problem. And, you know, you might address them and say, hey, you know, you said this, and they'll be like, oh, I was just joking, but you feel like they're being serious.
Yeah, and there's a proverb that says, you know, don't do that. You know, like, oh, I was only joking. Like, don't, yeah. And so this is Simon, this is 30, Sefim 4. This is called avak Lashon haRa. So what you're talking about there, this passive aggressive, like thinly veiled insults, like backhanded compliments kind of thing, that are true, like not the jestful stuff, like Brad, you're an idiot, but like the stuff where it's like, Brad, you're an idiot, and I kind of mean that, like that thinly veiledness. That's what's part of, I think we would consider that avak Lashon haRa, which is basically like the dust of Lashon haRa. And so verse Sefim 4, there are things that are forbidden because they are avak Lashon haRa. What is the case of avak Lashon haRa? One who says, do not talk about so-and-so. I do not want to tell you what happened and what became of that. Right? Like you see where it's like, oh, no, I don't want to talk about it. You know, like
it's bringing attention to it. But
yeah, just what you, because what you've done is you've implied that there's something negative, and you're like trying to, you shouldn't have even brought it up. You know, like you look like you're trying to back yourself away and not do Lashon haRa, but you've actually still committed avak Lashon haRa.
It's kind of a false humility thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And so one who speaks, like here, also one who speaks in praise of his fellow in the presence of his enemies. That is avak Lashon haRa, since this will cause them to speak derogatorily about him.
That is, and again, that is something that is textbook narcissism. That's you know, whenever you are upset with someone else, and so in their presence you feel the need to lavish praises on somebody that in your mind is in some way competing with them for your approval. That's still narcissism, and it's that same passive aggressive, you know, it's rather than telling the other person how short they've come, you're drawing attention to that by pointing out somebody else's successes.
Yeah, and there's also a bit of this too, where if you speak about somebody or even about yourself in a comparative manner, and even if it's like not in a bad way, but in a way that could imply or put a comparativeness where the other person involved is going to be denigrated in any way because of that speech, that's avak Lashon haRa.
So you said, sorry, go ahead.
No, you first.
Just to clarify, did you say that if you are like, say, like you have a friend and you're surrounded by his enemies, if you praise him, then you're inviting his enemies to insult
to speak
him,
derogatorily. Basically. Yeah.
So even if the intent is good, if you're not thoughtful about it, and a kind of like Bradley was saying earlier about chess.
Yeah, you have to play 4D chess with how you talk.
Because I think a lot of people, like you said, they gather information and they share it, and they don't think about, okay, how's this going to make this person look to everyone else? Is this going to hurt them financially, emotionally? Yeah.
And so there's also, we talked about this one a little bit, joking in a lighthearted manner, as one who's not speaking out of hatred, but like a thinly veiled, like passive aggressiveness. One who relates Lashon haRa in a deceiving manner, That is, he pretends that he's speaking innocently and that he does not know what he is saying is Lashon haRa. And then when people remonstrate with him for speaking Lashon haRa, he says, I did not know that that was Lashon haRa, or I didn't know that what I was describing were the actions of so-and-so, or whatever. Like these sort of a false humility, or even like trying to be like, well, I didn't realize that that would come off as bad when you're kind of talking about a bad thing. That counts. There's the deceitfulness, right? There's no getting around it. It's when you're being so we haven't talked about slander quite yet, but basically slander is things that are true but are very demeaning and embarrassing.
Slander in fact doesn't have to be true, but it can be true.
I thought slander had to be true, because otherwise it's libel.
Or is it the other way around?
No, in print it's libel.
Is it in print?
Yes.
It's libel? Okay.
Slander is spoken. In print it's libel. Name the movie.
I don't know the movie. Sue me.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So libel is published.
Ah.
Yeah.
So just
defamation is the overall oral or written.
Very well.
Defamation. Well, and defamation can even be true also. It doesn't have to be false, right? It's just it's information that, if made public knowledge, mars your image. Yeah, and I think there's a reason for this, right? Think about this. If it's important enough, right? Because I know there's a lot of people thinking right now, well, what if somebody actually is doing something wrong and somebody has to be told about it, right? Is Lashon haRa for me to report that to an authority? And it's like, okay, understand the difference. If you think it's a big enough deal that you need to report it to an authority, then report it to that authority. You don't have to report it to anybody else. You don't have to speak to anybody else about it. And here's another thing to consider. If it's important enough that you feel the need to report it to an authority, you're probably not the only person that feels that need, right? If you think that you are the only person who could report this to somebody, I would heavily consider the severity of whatever it is you think you need to report, right? This is one of those things where, you know, like men who beat their wives, it's usually not only one person who knows about that. Usually more than one person knows about that.
Yeah, and we're gonna that's part of the second half of this, is we are gonna get into like things that are like, because this is a natural question. Well, I feel like I can't say anything like about anybody, even if it's true, but if it's bad, because it's embarrassing. Because like the next part here, you know, like it's forbidden for one to shame his fellow, whether in word or in deed, even in private and certainly in public. And that's from Simon 29:17. So just the chapter previous. So, you know, anything that you could say that would lead to embarrassing another person counts as Lashon haRa. So you can't do it. So like, how do we handle like somebody who's done us wrong, sinned against us? Things like that. There's a couple of things. And actually, and I really encourage, because we don't have time to do it here, I almost wanted to just read the whole 2 chapters, 29 and 30 from the book, because they're really, really good. But we can't do that. So you know, if it's available on Safaria, just look up, I'll pull the banner back up here. Just look up the Kitzer Shulchan Aruch on Safaria, and you can sift through, start in Simon 29 and 30. 30 is specifically about Lashon haRa, but 29 is also full of really, really good stuff that kind of integrates with 30. Yeah, so like, what is the proper way? If somebody does something wrong, or living in open sin, we're trying to conduct business here and I'm not allowed to say something that would be embarrassing, but it's important that he knows this because it could be a detriment to himself. So where's the line? What do we do with all of that?
Yeah, it's like, the way I see it is if it's something that really is that important to bring up to someone else, then it probably has a legal precedence, right? If it's a behavioral issue, then that's something that you should bring up to the person independently, like to their face. That's something you can speak with them to their face about. If it's something that is so bad that you have to go and tell somebody else, then it's something that would require you to tell a legal authority, right? In which case, this is not Lashon haRa. You're reporting something that is not just a detriment to the person themselves, but in all likelihood, others around them, right? This is something that is a detriment to other people. Like I said, there would be a legal precedence. There would be we're talking about a crime, right? If it's not a crime, you don't need to tell anybody else about it, even if you're aware of it. It's not your business. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and so there's like this kind of, so we've and Rabbi Paul talks about in some areas about, I think it's 1 Corinthians chapter 6. He's writing a letter, and he just gets done talking about an issue that's he's writing to the community about in chapter 5. And in chapter 6, he kind of clarifies a little bit. He's basically like, hey, if somebody sins against you, go to them first. Try to make amends there. Am I right? You're looking at me funny.
No, that wasn't you.
Okay. And try to make amends there. Go to him first, and then if that doesn't work, then go to the next level up to somebody who's in a position of authority, but is like kind of directly responsible for that person in some way, and then seek further counsel. Kind of bring that up and go up the chain until it gets to a point where it can be handled.
Now, here's a good question, because this is something that I know is a bit of a struggle for married couples, right? Like, is it Lashon haRa to share something with your spouse that was told to you in confidence?
Ooh.
Right?
I have my own opinion.
Right. And I've got a feeling you and I kind of fall on the same line. Like my general, where I fall is like, if I share something with somebody that has a spouse, my automatic assumption is that they will be telling that spouse, because the way I was raised, spouses do not have secrets from each other, right?
Yes.
That their marriage is much more important than my secret.
I was going to say, essentially, the two are one. So there should not be any.
If you're telling one, you are telling the other, because they are one.
So it should be understood that if you say something to the one, both are going to know at some point.
Right. So if you don't want the spouse to know, don't tell the person.
Yeah. And there's certain things I think, like between, men that are married that may not want to divulge certain information to their spouse, just kind of exercise discretion on an individual basis. It's very case by case. Maybe there might just be some things where it's like, she doesn't really need to know, right? Like, it's not, that information is not pertinent or important. It doesn't edify in any way. It's not important. It's not doing anything, so why even bother bringing it up? Or, it's possible that that could, case by case basis, exercise your own precautions there when it comes to stuff like that. But yeah, general rule of thumb for me, unless it's like something ultra specific cases, I usually don't keep any secrets from her. And a lot of the times I will seek her counsel on certain things too, where I'm like, hey, this is sort of what's going on. What do you think? Right. I might be too emotionally invested in this.
If it's something like, you've got a male friend who's got to have a surgery, and maybe it's one that's like a particularly personal one for men, of which, there are several that are that way, and there are several that are that way for women also, right? So it's one of those where it's like, okay, maybe all she really needs to know is that he's got to have a surgery, like the the deeper implications of that are something that you could save for somewhere and someplace else.
Yeah. So there are some things when it comes to marriages and business interactions, it's no longer Lashon haRa if it's relevant to the marriage or the business. That's another thing that's within Jewish code of law when it comes to talking bad about somebody, like, hey, I'm about to get married to this person or whatever. Is there anything I need to know that I don't already know before going into this? And that's the time where, like, you're probably going to say some pretty bad things, but it doesn't count as Lashon haRa because certain things it's constituting a warning for a decision process that's about to be made. Right. Same with business. Right. So, and it has to be relevant. Like, it's not a free pass. It's not like, hey, he does this and that, and it has nothing to do with getting married in any way, shape, or form. Completely different. And same with business. If you're about to try and do a business interaction with a person and they go, yeah, well, he wets the bed. Just because you're doing business with a guy doesn't mean you can bring that up. It has to be relevant to the business. Typically speaking, as an example, you can't really talk about finances, other people's finances. And so if you're about to do business with somebody and he's like, hey, I need a business loan. And then you can come up to that person and be like, hey, I know you're about to do business with this guy. He's defaulted like 9 times and he never pays his debts, just so you know. That's ordinarily that would be Lashon haRa. In that case, it's not, because it is a business transaction. You are actively giving counsel for something. And so, and there's also this thing too, and this is in the Kitzur as well, in the Shulchan. If you basically believe, or you almost know for certain, that if you approach an individual about something that they did wrong to you, and that they won't listen to you, or that you approaching them is going to damage your relationship with them in some permanent way, then it's okay to actually skip that level of peer-to-peer interaction and go to the next level authority up. This is very common. You can do this even to just seek counsel. You can go to somebody like, hey, I'm going to confront this person about this and this. I'm not a professional. You're better at this than me. Here's the situation. What do you think I should do? Right. That's okay. That's not Lashon haRa. You are seeking counsel. It's a different thing. And then, of course, if it's a problem, like if this is a communal problem and, it's been addressed already, it might be time to bring it immediately to the next level up. And you don't have to go straight to the top in community authorities, but, the next level up. This is not tattling, especially if it's dealing with sin, particularly something that's blatantly forbidden. Now, if it's like an issue of right versus wrong and interpretations, like, well, he's a Calvinist, I'm tattling on you. Like, that's not the same. And this is where I come to like the Corinthians 5. The Corinthians 5 example is a man sleeping with his father's wife, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly. And he's very open about it, and he brags about it. And the community is like, hey, Paul, what do we do with this guy? Like, we're supposed to be welcoming to sinners, supposed to be forgiving, blah, blah, blah. What do we do? It's slightly different, but imagine you weren't bragging about it, but you knew about it. You could confront him personally, but you would not be wrong to go straight to the community leaders and basically say, hey, this guy's doing this. You guys need to know about it. And he's very unapologetic about it, if you don't already know. And so, that's not tattling. That's what you're trying to do is find the best way for something that's above your pay grade, for lack of a better phrase, to settle a much larger or really heavy, over the top kind of disputes that are affecting more than just one person in right. Some cases. Yeah, there's definitely a time and a place for that kind of stuff. So I again, this is talked about in here. It does not constitute Lashon haRa to do these things, especially if you're trying to, especially if you believe he's not going to listen to you, and it's going to be better coming from a position of an authority or something. Then definitely, As long as your goal is to try and fix the problem, to try and better the person, or deal with a problem that's not going to get better in some way, right? Seek counsel. Got anything to add?
No, not really. I was gonna say we're about 15 minutes to the hour, so we could probably open up for questions at this point, because I know we probably didn't think of all the questions everybody's got, and there's actually a pretty active conversation going on in the chat that I think probably could be addressed. It's not really pertinent to the topic, but I think it's important.
Yeah, I think. Okay, so I think this is the paragraph. So this is number 5 in chapter 30, by the way. While you guys think of questions, I'll just read this. But definitely drop some questions in the chat now. I'm gonna pull that banner up so that way people know you can drop some questions. We're opening it up. Whether one relates the Lashon haRa in the presence of his fellow, the subject of the Lashon haRa, or one relates it not in his presence, or one who relates information which could result, if the information is passed from one to another, in damage to his fellow, whether his physical person or his property, or even to distress or to frighten him, all of these are classified as Lashon haRa and are forbidden. However, if this information was already said in the presence of 3 people, it can be assumed that the information was already made public. And were one of those 3 that heard it to relate this information another time, it would not be prohibited as Lashon haRa. However, this applies only if he did not intend to spread the word and to reveal the information to more than whom it is already known. What remedy does a person have that he can protect him from transgressing the sin of Lashon haRa? If he's a Torah scholar and thus able to learn, he should engage in Torah study. And if he's not a Torah scholar, then he should adopt a more humble comportment is actually what it says here at the bottom. So I thought this was going to get more into going to the communal leaders, and it did not. So that one's on me. I'm trying to find that particular paragraph. We have any questions yet?
So here's an interesting one, right? Because of the idea that if it's true, whether or not it's true, like if it affects the person financially. So if you are reporting an employee who is unbecoming to the business, right, to their superiors, is this Lashon haRa? Because your report is likely going to have an effect on this person's status. But then this employee in and of themselves could also have an effect on the business owner's financial status by way of marring the image of the business. So, is it Lashon haRa or is it not to report this employee to their supervisor?
Man, it's okay, 29:16. It's in the previous chapter. So it's one who sees his fellow sin or his friend go in an improper path is commanded to bring him back to the proper way and inform him of his sinning evil deeds. And that's from Vayikra 19:17. And so the next 16, when does this requirement to rebuke one's fellow apply? As long as he assumes he will listen to him. But if he is certain he will not listen to him, it is forbidden to rebuke him. And so for Rabbi, basically Eliezer, son of Shimon, just as there is a mitzvah for a person to say the words of the rebuke that will be accepted, so too there is a mitzvah for a person not to say words of rebuke that will not get accepted. It is in fact an obligation to offer such words as the verse states in Proverbs 9:8. Do not rebuke a scoffer. Man, it still doesn't talk about going to. It's okay to go to the authorities. I'm trying to find that part. It's kind of scattered, but it's here. That's why I said just read the whole thing for yourself. It's like 19 verses, but it's all here.
So we got a couple of questions. This I thought we addressed a little bit earlier, but sarcasm does not. Okay, so again, it's the intention behind the sarcasm, right? If it's all good fun, like Seamus and I often have on camera, where we're having a go at one another, right? This is in good fun. So no, that is not Lashon haRa, but there is the passive aggressive sarcasm, which is like you're trying to say something bad about the person, but pass it off as a joke so that you don't feel like you're a bad person for slandering them. That's why it's called the dust of Lashon haRa.
Yeah,
right.
It's that thinly veiledness. Yeah,
And it's usually one way if the other person isn't going back and out.
And let's see, here's another good one. What about when family is spreading gossip?
Ooh. I mean, it's still Lashon haRa, but like, what do you do? Is that what your question is? Yeah.
And so this is a good one, especially for the Christian audience, right? Because, and we probably need to do a whole episode on this. What does it mean to honor one's parents, right? Because in the Christian church, it's often accepted as honoring one's parents means to obey them no matter what, right? Which couldn't be farther from the truth. To honor one's parents, in many cases, can be to hold your parents even to the standard that they taught you was right when they themselves are not living up to it. And so if your parents taught you that gossip is wrong and they're gossiping, then you should hold them to the standard that they taught you. It is not wrong to correct one's family.
So this is not the one I was looking for. It's different, but this is actually stronger wording, which I find interesting. Tell me what you think of this. Regarding in sin that matters that are between man and his fellow, but one who sinned in heavenly matters, that is like a sin that's between him and God, right? This is not like a sin between person to person. This is like a heavenly matter. It's a sin that is only between him and God, basically. If he did not repent after being rebuked privately, it says, we humiliate him publicly and publicize his sin and berate him to his face. We degrade and curse him until he returns to the proper path, as did all the prophets of the Jewish people. What do you think of that?
Read that again.
It says, regarding one who sinned in heavenly matters, right, as in a sin between him and God, not between him and a fellow. If he did not repent after being rebuked privately, we humiliate him publicly and publicize his sin and berate him to his face. We degrade and curse him until he returns to the proper path, as did all the prophets of the Jewish people. So this is mockery. Mockery is part of the forbidden Lashon haRa. It's forbidden to mock a person. That's Lashon haRa. But you're allowed to mock an idolater, essentially.
Right.
And that's
right. Which is why I don't feel it's Lashon haRa to show this question.
Wow.
Is not believing in the divinity of Jesus a salvation issue? Buck has been slandering people again about it. Yeah, he does that pretty frequently. And no, it's not a salvation issue. That's the official alternate media stance on this, is that it is not a salvation issue. Now, in as much as the Trinitarians may be able to present an argument as to why it's a salvation issue, we here at Alternate Media are being rather generous by taking the position that it's not a salvation issue, because rest assured, I can make an argument that it is a salvation issue in the exact opposite.
In fact, you've said this in the past. It would be easier for us to make an argument for the salvific issue of the Trinity easier than the salvific issue of Torah observance. so much easier. Like we could definitely make a very solid case for one better than the other. And we don't think either is, right? So it's one of those things. But if you want to take that train, we can jump on and fill it with coal. We're ready to go. Steam's rolling. So
right. Yeah. By taking a neutral stance on that, like I said, we're being rather generous because there is an argument that can be made.
But no. So and essentially, and I'm trying not to. You kind of made it public, and a lot of people know what they've seen the debate. The debate is public. What the biggest problem with this Lashon haRa thing is he's really never given us an ability to answer. He usually talks bad about us and he's blocked us, so we can't see it. We can't see what he's saying about us. Sometimes people will send us screenshots of what he's saying, and it's just slander, and he's doing it because he knows that we're blocked, and so we can't retaliate, and so he feels like he has more freedom to say what he wants, and that is Lashon haRa. He's a lot of the times, and I'm okay with saying this because what he says about us is usually blatantly false. It's these outlandish things that are not true at all, and so it's just libel because he publishes them. They're written. So it is libel.
Except for on TikTok, because then it's spoken.
He'll come around.
There was another one up here. Where is it? Is there a point? No. It was Spirit Wars had a question, and I can't find it now.
Oh, hang on. Yeah, I saw one that looked pretty decent.
Is that sarcasm?
Yeah, can you speak ill?
There it is. Yeah. Nope. No.
Yeah, no. Matter of fact, there's always that story about dropping a coin in front of a statue of Buddha, right? And which way do you bend over to pick it up? Do you bend over facing it? Well, no, because that's the appearance of idolatry, right? It's the appearance of evil. It's bowing in the direction of this idol. So do you face away from it and then bend over to pick this coin up? Well, no, because now you're showing disrespect to somebody else's religion. And that's also not exactly cool,
Yeah, so I will say this: to speak about the religion in a negative way is okay. You're talking about basically a written form of doctrine. That you're ridiculing the doctrine itself. To talk bad about the people is kind of that's the big no-no, I think, for me. Like we can say things like, well, this is what Islam teaches and here's why it's wrong. That's not ridicule. Or this is what Christianity teaches and that's why it's wrong. That's not that's more or less just apologetics. But it's when you go like, Christians are all dumb, because that's when you're like, okay, now we're in the area of we're insulting a bunch of people and we're overgeneralizing and things like that. So so we got Summon on 3132. I've been following that conversation.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've been a little distracted by the conversation.
It's happening only on Twitch, so our YouTube followers can't see it. But let's see.
I was gonna say, yeah, there's more than one Orthodox Jew actually that we engage with on a regular basis, and they're actually more so in full support of what we're doing here.
Summon on, he just jumped in, and he doesn't really know a lot about us, and so we know what it looks like. We get that, and all of his concerns are totally valid. He just hasn't gotten to know us yet, so he doesn't know like all the specifics of what we believe and things like that. So,
right.
So that's
yeah, definitely jump in the Discord, man.
Oh yeah, we got the
we would
Discord
love
link in the
to we would
description.
love to discuss with you further, because you really are not the first Orthodox Jew that we've encountered, and like I said, there are a number of others that we encounter on a pretty regular basis. They're good friends of ours.
They might be joining us tonight too. So
Hopefully that would be awesome.
In the after parties, which we got here, boom, after parties in the Discord for the Patreon supporters.
Speaking of which, we're actually like right on the hour now, so this kind of came up at a good time.
Yeah, and we know that he's weird surface level discussion of the Lashon haRa. We know it's surface level. We know we could actually spend a lot of time talking about this. Our primary audience is actually usually Christians, and so this is where we go into the after parties, and we usually build upon the case for a little higher level of learning. So we try to keep it here. We answer the questions, we go over certain topics, but usually we just don't have the time slot, right, to spend a lot of time in a lot of depth. We tried that once, and it was like a 2.5 hour episode, and we were like, yeah, that's too long.
One last question. What is Discord? Discord is a social networking site that's kind of like the culmination of all the social network sites all rolled into one. It doesn't cost, but to access the after parties chat, you do have to be a Patreon supporter. But those memberships start as low as $1 a month. So
yeah,
we'll
get full access. And the Discord, it's more like, it's not really social media because it's not like Facebook or anything like that. It's more like Skype,
like a chat room,
way better. Like it's servers, it's chat rooms, it's but there's video chatting available, voice, and everything's tabbed and
topical
organized.
Discussion.
Yeah, a lot of gamers use Discord to stream their games. Discord servers for 100 reasons to start a Discord server. We have one. And so you can like drop a question in the Discord server. We have a tab for like certain questions or whatever. And we're in there so we can get to it and answer it. There's also 180 some odd people in our server that, we have a lot of good scholars in there that can help you with certain questions. There's plenty of resources kind of packed into the one server. So if you jump onto the server and you have questions, comments, you want to talk about certain things, you have actually a plethora of knowledge available to you. So, so I think
I don't have anything other than that. We're right at the hour. Is there anything you wanted to say, Rad? You've been quiet tonight.
It's a lot to think about. I feel like, something that most people don't really understand. They think as long as it's true, it's all good.
That tends to be the Christian frame of mind.
No, yeah.
So it's okay to talk about as long as it's true.
No, and I really feel like, I really do feel like we barely scratched the surface with some of this stuff. Like I'm hesitant to end the episode because there's so much we didn't touch. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I'm like looking for a way to, we could probably do a part 2, but next week we have the Shavuot episode, since Shavuot's right around the corner from that.
Right.
And then after that, we'll be doing Tikkun Olam with Saint Sages.
Nice.
That's right. Yep.
That'll be a really cool conversation.
Yes. So,
we'll go ahead because I have so many personal stories that I could share. Like so many examples, stories, personal stuff. Just, it's all up here. Maybe in the after parties.
And that's what I like about the after parties is we have a little bit more time. People can ask us questions. You can, and that's the thing. Just before we go, in the after parties, you can 1v1 us. You can ask us any questions. You can chill in awkward silence with us. It's whatever you want to do. But immediately after the show, we chill out in there for like an hour or so, and then and you can just talk about anything or ask us specific questions, whatever. So anyway, That's all I got. We will see all of you guys in the after parties. If not, join the Discord server anyway. We hang out in the VC chat daily. We also have a Daf Yomi being done daily on the Discord server. So if you're interested in the Daf Yomi, and we've got some other stuff going on. We also have like daily videos, watch parties from plenty of stuff. We got a lot of stuff going on. So Patreon supporter or not, you should join the Discord anyway. We got plenty of resources that are free and available. So yeah, I got nothing else. I'm about to hit the credits roll here. So right before we do that though, boom, one last shout out to all of our top tier patrons. Want to give a special thanks to y'all.
Yep.
You got a drink?
Oh, of course I got a drink.
Okay, just making sure. Does
yeah. But I wanted to take the time to thank all of our yes, she also still has sparkling water,
good,
which is do the beer, because like it's wrong to cheers without actual alcohol. 'Tis a sin. But yes, thank you to everybody who donates. We really couldn't do what we do without you guys. I know we say that every week, but like, it's so true though.
Yeah, we got a lot, and it really helps. And you're helping the community. A lot of that money goes right back in to help other people and for giveaways and things like that. So your generosity is being paid forward. I got nothing. You got nothing. My button's hanging over the credits roll. I'm really bad at outros.
I was gonna say, definitely. If you have more questions, email them to us. Ask us in the Discord. If you're not a Patreon supporter, if you are a Patreon supporter, we'll see you in the after parties. We can discuss more about this. I really would love to see you in the Discord. I would love the opportunity to speak to you a little more. But if I don't see you later on, my friend, l'chaim.
L'chaim.